There we go.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. And I'm so pleased to see a lot of you here this evening to learn more about our legislative priorities for 2025. My name is Terese Grant. I am the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Iowa. My other co-president is Holly Appelt. And on behalf of Holly and I'm just very pleased that you're all here to learn more about our priorities for the legislative session beginning in January. It seems like a long time away, but time is slipping away from us and it's going to be happening soon. Um, and just in case, I want to recognize that we do have two uh, league members who will be attending tonight that we're going to be welcoming, and they are somewhat special in that one is in the House and one is in the Senate, and that would be Representative uh, Eleanor Levin from the Johnson County League and Senator Herman Kornbach from the Ames-Story County League. They've signed up, and so we're expecting them to join us tonight. It would be wonderful, to have those two individuals with us this evening as our amazing lobbyist talks about the 2025 legislative priorities. And so with that, I'm going to turn this over to Amy so that she can share information with you about the upcoming session and talk about our priorities. Up to you, Amy.
All right. Thanks, Therese. I am just going to get right started right away. I will be a little distracted because I am going to still watch the participant list. I should have shared my hosting with Therese. But also, I will ask if you do have a question, go ahead and either raise your hand or pop it into the chat as we go. Hopefully, we'll have enough time to chat about the different priorities. But also, I wanted to let you know that we've got several little pop-up quizzes, whatever you want, questions per priority, just to help us gather more information from you so we know what things are most important to you as we get started with the 2025 legislative session. So I wanted to, well, obviously, you know who I am. Maybe some of you don't, but this is going to be my 33rd legislative session. So I did finally go back and find out which year I actually started with the league, and it's 2010. So have been with you guys for over a decade, and our policies have remained pretty similar, but they've evolved over the number of years. So I'm happy to talk about it. I also wanted to make sure everybody knew who their whole team was that lobbies with for League of Women Voters of Iowa. Craig Patterson is my business partner. You probably have seen him if you've come to our Capitol days or some of our events. He is always working, especially on some of the environmental issues, tax issues. He kind of tends to take the lead on that. We are really fortunate to have last year's lobbyist, Chloe Geyer, coming back, or last year's intern coming back to work with us. She is finishing up her last year at Drake and starting a grad school online. And she is going to come back and work as a legislative associate. So I guess a step up from intern. And then we were fortunate, and I should say, Chloe is herself an advocate on gun safety issues. She has started up the first student-led Everytown for Gun Safety chapter. She goes out to DC annually with them to lobby. And is really involved in those issues. And Jessica Seelinger is a North Carolinian who's been at Drake, and she is recently just finished up work with Polk County Conservation doing social media content around conservation. So their background really nicely fit with a lot of your issues. So I wanted to just highlight them because we're excited to have them. And I just realized they kind of look alike. I didn't realize that before. Real quick, before we go into our priorities, I wanted to kind of just set the stage on where we're at with the House and the Senate as we go into this election in 2 weeks. Um, you can see that we are at a super majority still in the Senate. with one seat being vacant. That's Senator Wayland Brown stepped down midterm, and 64 Republicans and 36 Democrats in the House. As you look at the Senate elections, I just wanted to give you a highlight of who's up this year. There are 18 Republicans in the Senate and 7 Democrats. You can see that there's 7 total that are unopposed. I will say a couple of them have third party candidates, but no serious challenges to their seat. There are some 4 open seats, so those from retiring senators, and pretty much everyone thinks the biggest battles right now are between with Senator Zahn's reelection in Urbandale, Johnston area. That's my area. And Senator Giddens up in the Waterloo, Cedar Falls area. When you look at the House, all of them are up for reelection. There's quite a few of them that are unopposed, 17 Republicans, 17 Democrats. You can see that there were 9 Republicans that retired or left the seat and 4 Democrats that did. And you can kind of see where the biggest battles are really in terms of where the outcome is still pretty close and tight there. But I just wanted to level set a little bit about where we're at and what's coming up in this next 2 weeks. Also wanted to give you a heads up on the different dates for the legislative session. And I should note that these PowerPoints will be on the website and available to you. So if you're trying to scribble down everything, we will have those available to you after when we send out the recording as well. But session starts January 13th. So as fast as October flew by, it's going to be here in no time. I honestly don't know if we'll have a full slate of legislators then, because depending on what happens with, the lieutenant governor, if a senator is chosen or somebody who's currently serving in the legislature, that'll trigger a special election. If a House member runs for the Senate seat that's opened up, then that'll trigger another special election. So you don't really know if there will be things settled by then. Also, I wanted to note that there are some significant leadership changes going on right now. I should have mentioned that when I was back on the other slide, but oops, going the wrong way. Back here, when I looked at the leadership, Senator Whitver, unfortunately, is battling brain cancer. He's very young. He has a young family. It's very, very sad. And so he is serving as majority leader, but I think that there is some discussion that he will step down as a leader and have somebody else take that position while he continues to serve. So he is not up for election this year. And then, of course, Amy Sinclair is currently the acting lieutenant governor as Senate president, and Pam Yoakum is retiring. So we're going to have some changes in the Senate leadership structure at some point, which then, of course, triggers a whole bunch of committee changes. So let's just say strategy fluid this year. But back to the deadlines, you can see we have a full month during session to get bills drafted and signed on by legislators. And then our 2 funnel dates are March 7th and April 4th, which are the dates when bills have to get out of committee. And then, the 110th day is the supposed last day of session. We all know that won't necessarily happen right on that date. Maybe we can hope for that, a May Day surprise, but likely it'll go a little bit. Again, just a reminder to go ahead and mute yourselves. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here on that. Okay, so our issues. You will see this. I don't think it's up on the website yet, but it has been approved by the board for our priorities. Similar structure as we've had in the last couple of years. Um, I just noticed I put up the one without the new pictures. Oh well, sorry about that. But it has the same content. You will see newer pictures added to that. I must have not named it differently than I had before. But I'm just going to walk through each of these areas and we can have a discussion. And I promise you will get out of here by 8:30 because I know it's everybody's really busy this time of year. So, of course, first and foremost, I have to put up the voting is the priority, and it's so timely, right? So this last year we dodged some real bullets in killing a bill that would have banned ranked choice voting, would have required ballots to get in by 5 o'clock the night before the election, be handed in to the auditor's offices. It would have required additional envelopes for ballot mailing, which would have been election specific. So auditors wouldn't have been able to reuse them for each election cycle, which is super costly and super wasteful. And it would have also required a voter to put their voter ID number down on their ballot, which had all kinds of concerns. And there was a lot of other things that were in that bill from last year. Unfortunately, I'm worried that some of those ideas got set aside because we were coming up on an election year, and those might be reintroduced in this next year, particularly around the ranked choice of voting. The legislature was really keen on prohibiting it before we even allow it. So it's not allowed right now as an option for our state elections, but they wanted to outlaw it before there's even a discussion about it. And of course, that is one of our priorities. Again, this year, it was new last year, and it made the cut again for this year. As well as new this year is ending the electoral college and going toward a popular vote. I will just note that that is not something that the state only can do. It's a federal requirement. The state would have to sign on as, 2/3 of the states would have to ratify that. So it's a long process, but there is a lot of discussion nationally going on also about some federal legislation that might dictate how delegates are allocated. So to address the Nebraska issue, if you've been paying attention to the news about Nebraska, a couple senators wanted to try to change that so that they could sway the entire election by changing how they allocate their electoral votes. That's not going to happen, but it's something that I think there's a conversation largely going on. Continuing on here, I mean, obviously the promoting equal access and making sure all votes count are kind of broad statements that we will look at every election bill to make sure that they do that. Otherwise, likely would oppose those if it didn't make sure all votes are counted and it didn't promote equal access. Always, again, we can keep trying to get our constitutional amendment to change voting rights restoration so that it is automatic after the person has served their sentence, not including the payment of restitution and fees and fines in that before they would get their restoration from if they've been convicted of a felony. So a lot of things here that you've seen before. The newer ones are the ranked choice voting again, which I think some of you may have come to the Capitol for the subcommittee on that or listened in on it. The spokespeople for the organization that's working on ranked choice voting did a really great job of explaining it and testifying in the subcommittee process. Unfortunately, it did pass the House, but it got tabled in the Senate. But they had some pretty strong support over in the Senate too. It just lost time, and I think that the auditors really did a good job of explaining the costs that were rated around that. So before I go on to the next, do we have any questions or thoughts or moving on before moving on? I'm gonna make sure real quick we don't have anyone in the waiting room. Don't see anyone. Oh, so Linda asked, okay, I'm catching up here, sorry. So who sponsored the voting bills? Yep, Bobby Kaufman and Jason Schultz were the two primary sponsors, Jason being in the Senate and Bobby Kaufman in the House. Really, really was a Bobby Kaufman bill. Automatic voter registration would be a process. My understanding is some states do that where people are automatically registered to vote when they turn 18. The process around which I'm not quite sure. I'd have to go back and look and see how those states do that. But that you would be automatically registered. You wouldn't have to do anything to complete that registration. Other than show up to vote. If anybody has a better understanding of how that works, please feel free to unmute yourself. And
Is that voter motor registration?
that's part of it, yes, which we do have. Well, the option of registering when you get your driver's license. Yep, Carolyn asked about proof of citizenship. Yes, that wasn't part of the big Bobby Kaufman bill, but it was part of a different bill last year. Can't remember the bill number, but it was proof of citizenship came up as there was a bill on that too. I'm trying to look and see if you want the bill number. Oh, I didn't write the bill number, but yeah, it would have been citizen verification before being allowed to register to vote, which you can see would be a whole crazy thing if every single voter in Iowa had to prove their citizenship before before registering. We can't really do about some of I mean we haven't had anybody, we've had a lot of Democrat sponsored bills to try to roll back some of the restrictions that have been coming that come every 2 years, but they just really literally don't get any attention or subcommittee time. Myrna brought up the constitutional amendment. Yep. The amendment changing it to only citizens can vote, which is again a nuanced statement change that's going to cause people a lot of confusion. So that is a very yeah. I think I've heard a lot of people say, well, it doesn't really change anything, and it does. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next, but before I do that, if I can manage to get this poll thing working, I'm going to quickly, this is going to help us with determining where really to focus our energies this year. Why is it not coming up now? Of course it came up before when I wasn't needing it. And now that I'm trying to get it up, I can't enable my polls. Where did it go? Okay, well, maybe we won't do polls. Hold on just one more minute. Oh, it's showing up on my big screen, but not on my little screen. Okay, well, hold on just a minute. I'm gonna have to unshare my screen here so I can get to it. I apologize for that. Maybe I'll just disconnect my bigger screen. You guys still there? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still here.
Hopefully I didn't disconnect anybody when I did
No.
that on my computer.
I think you're good.
All right, so I'm gonna launch this question. Hopefully. And I should also note while you're voting that we will have a question at the end that asks on what issues you want more information about that might help us decide what things we should do. What things we should have our mini briefings on, like we did in the last couple of years, where we have sort of shorter little briefings on one or two issues during early in the session or during the session. So keep that in mind as we're going through these. Okay, about half of you have voted. Give it a little bit more time. It looks like our winner is fighting, which is what we've been doing, right? Fighting back against limits on voting options. And with electoral college and automatic voter registration coming in pretty close. Okay, I think probably the last few that aren't voting are me and probably Terese or something. Okay. All right, thank you. I'll share those results so you see them. And then I'm going to switch back to the screen. Apologize for the glitchy stuff. I feel like every time I do a presentation, something new comes up that isn't working for me. So next is transparency and citizenship. And this has not changed from last year, except we want to reinstate gender balance requirements. Before it was to protect the law that required gender balance for boards, for appointed boards and commissions. Now we want to reinstate them. I think it's going to be a really tough road ahead to try to get that put back in place, unless things change significantly with the makeup of the legislature and the governor's office. But I think that you are seeing less diversity going on those boards right now. I think it's something we're going to have to continue to watch. If you know a grad student, that'd be a great, great project to monitor before balances and years prior, and then as we move forward with the new law. I haven't heard a lot about FOIA requests this year, but in the past, especially during the pandemic, the timely processing of those requests was really a big issue. And then two are related to the legislative process. Some of you may have been on prior discussions where we talked about how committee amendments are often, most often, almost 98%, I would say, not available to the public prior to the committee vote. And it would be so easy to just make those live on the website, but they have made a point of not making those amendments available until they are out of committee. And actually if they pass, they just become part of the bill. So you don't ever see the amendment, you just see the new bill. So it's a lack of transparency. You have to literally go around and ask a legislator for a copy of the bill or of the amendment. So it makes it really hard to advise legislators on whether they should vote for a bill or amendment or not when you don't see it. The other issue is continuing the virtual option for subcommittee meetings. Only the Senate has that right now. You can watch things in the House, but you cannot participate in the House virtually. And it has been such a great accommodation for people that live far away from the capital or who don't want to take off work to have come up and have their voice heard on an issue. Also, legislators like to cancel subcommittees at the last minute. So if you traveled from Dubuque to Des Moines for a 15-minute subcommittee and it's canceled, you just wasted your whole day. So we would like to require that option. Now, those don't have to be legislative. We could do those through legislative rules. And it's something that I hope everybody's talking to their legislators about. It's just good citizenship and it's just good government to have those options for people to be engaged with their government. So I will pause here for questions. Probably not too much new here.
Me, it's Mary Ellen again. Is there any reason why the House doesn't allow that virtual option for subcommittee meetings?
Um,
What's their excuse?
uh, they say it's too difficult because they chose not to do Zoom. They chose to use a different system, and they say they can't control spam. However, despite the Senate having some really awful spam bombs that were offensive and explicit, and teens run those systems for legislators, so it was very the cases got referred to the FBI, but they have fixed that in the Senate by just not allowing people to show themselves until they speak. So they turn off the video. The only problem with that is that they also turn off like sign language interpreters who join to help individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing participate. And that became an issue when there were uh, the redesign bills, the government restructuring bills were were discussed because individuals from the deaf community had gotten an interpreter to come online and then they shut the video off. So it was unfortunate on that part. It's a work in progress, but no other excuse other than they think the technology is limiting. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, hopefully. Oh, good. Finally, it's going to work on this one. So we get an idea of where you guys are on this. Did it launch?
No, not yet.
Okay. Try it again. Not giving me the option to launch. Okay, hold on. Oh, I have to stop sharing the other one. Oh, this is going really well, isn't it, guys? There
Okay,
you go.
now it's up. It's good now.
Gotta get my kids down here to help me with my tech. And if you hear a lot of laughing in the background, my teenager is home from college, which just Drake, so she can drive home, but she's babysitting two little kids upstairs tonight for a friend of hers. So you may hear some toddler voices in the background. Okay, we're almost there. 70% of you have voted. Last call. Looks like we have a winner in the seeing amendments prior to a vote. Make my life easier if that would happen. Thank you very much. I'm going to share those results real quick while I move on to the next one, and then I will turn off those results. Moving on to education. Holy cow, that was definitely one of the issues that exploded last year. And I will have to say, I would anticipate that there's going to be more discussion on education this year. So our our priorities really haven't changed since last year with the addition of reinstating all AEA functions. So you're probably not seeing a ton of the impacts of those AEA changes immediately, but definitely in the next year, they're going to really come up. I've heard a lot from a lot of people about the truancy bill that passed and the new stronger requirements on truancy and the fact that schools are not uniformly applying that law. So there are kids unable to get physical therapy, occupational therapy, um, ABA services for kids with autism, applied behavioral analysis, I think is what that stands for, and mental health visits because of how schools are implementing the new law where you can't miss more than 10% of your hours in school. And so that is becoming an issue that I've heard from all corners of the state. But I think that people are still feeling out how the AEA changes are impacting their kids and the schools in general. And so again, reinstating all AEA functions, and I would say funding too, because they were reduced in funding by 22 million, and then half of that was siphoned off into the new division of educate, the new special education division in the Department of Education. So again, the voucher issue, fully funding public schools. I know everyone on this call probably would like to see a reversal of the voucher system. I was just looking up some of the numbers on that this year, and I know that for the current school year, I was trying to get they were way underestimated the number of vouchers. So earlier this summer, I think it was July, the Register reported that $200 million this year, I think it's 235 million is what is expected. And they had budgeted for 180 million during the legislative session. However, it's a standing unlimited appropriation. So that means the government will pay it regardless of how much that price tag is. It'll just eat away at the money that we'll have at the end of the year that reverses to the carryover funds that reverses to the various pots of savings that we have, and the taxpayer relief fund that we set up to help fund tax cuts. So they received more than 35,000 applications. And just a reminder, that's $7,826 per voucher. So that's quite a bit. Now, this is the current school year that we're in. So that's the second year of the program. I think it's up to you can have an income up to 4 times the poverty level. Next year, that income cap is off. So if you are an individual making $500,000 in income, you still would get that same amount of money as somebody who's making $12,000 a year. So there is no income cap after that. And so yeah, that's our priority is to try to implement some way of tracking how public funds are being used for non-public schools. And then, of course, requiring non-public schools meet the same standards as public schools if they are receiving those funding. Don't want to let affordable childcare go. That is always, it's universally, Republicans and Democrats have tried to work together on affordable childcare options. They might have different ways of going about doing that, but that has been a priority for most legislators because of its connection to keeping people in the workforce. And then there were a couple discussions about free 4-year-old preschool because some school districts do not have 4-year-old preschool available, which I did not realize that there were a number of school districts that did not have that available to families. So I will stop there and see if you have questions, comments. I'm going to go back to the chat and take a look.
Right. And Amy, I know that first question from Janet is about she posted that when you were talking about the rules on absences. Yeah.
Just for public school. Yeah.
Amy, I have a question. This is Carolyn. Are there potential partners? And I'm wondering if the school superintendents are having to hold their heads down on this public education and funding.
I have honestly, we last year worked a lot with the AEAs and school board, the school board association, not the administrators organization. I mostly work with the school board, but certainly could with them as well. I'm kind of behind on a check-in with the AEAs to find out what they're seeing, but as you mentioned in your post there, the caseloads have doubled. I think that's happening a lot with the departure of people leaving because of all of the changes, as well as the fact that there's kind of a lot of uncertainty. It, I don't think much is being collected right now unless the AEAs are collecting it themselves, which I don't know how they would with no money and no fewer staff. Linda, the term non-public schools is how yes, in essence, all non-public schools are private. It's how the Iowa code refers to not public schools. So private schools are referred to as non-public schools. Yes, you can call them private schools, but it's hard for me because everybody at the Capitol always refers to them as non-public. So that's why I use that terminology. That's what's in code. And Linda also messaged that she would like me to repeat the number requested from the vouchers. And I can tell you that it was a July article in the Capital Dispatch, and some of it was from the Register and Cedar Rapids Gazette too, but that they referenced. But it was more than 35,000 applications received at a cost of 234,780, 234,000,000, 234.8 million, rounding it. And you get $7,826 per voucher. So just a frame of reference, in year one, the legislature anticipated $106 million and 14,000 applications, and they actually got 128,000 or 16,000 applications, so 2,000 more than expected, and then it at a cost of 128 million, which was $20 million more than expected. So
Amy, I read somewhere that most of those applications, if not all, were from existing enrollees in non-public schools, that this voucher system did not attract any new enrollees. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. I know there are waiting lists from somebody who I know wanted to go to Des Moines Christian. So I think it's like a 2-year waiting list that she was told. I think anecdotally we heard schools raise their tuitions. I
In
don't,
both,
I don't have the facts on that, but I can certainly, I'm gonna make note and certainly ask if that's getting tracked.
in Cedar Rapids, some of the private schools are expanding their facilities and buying vacant Cedar Rapids School District buildings to have more room. Obviously anticipating greater enrollment.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I'm writing down all of these questions to see if we can talk to our partners about that. Um, Sherry, those application numbers were for this school year. So we'll be budgeting for next school year, this legislative session. So we'll have less money reverting to the general fund because we won't have as big of an ending fund balance if we blow our budget for this year. So if it's oh, I'm terrible at math, $50,000, $60,000 more than what was expected, will just be less money going back to the general fund. I'm checking did I miss anybody's questions? Oh, I think I answered that, Diane, with the excessive number of vouchers. It's just less money that will be available for other things and making it more difficult. That coupled with tax cuts will really significantly shorten the availability of funding for other things. And for public schools.
I apologize for talking instead of typing, but I have a broken
Okay.
right hand and I can't type my left hand very quickly. But another place that, we're spending money in the state is to send state patrol troopers to the border, and that's coming out of our general fund as well.
Yeah, I don't know how they're paid when they go down there. I guess I never even thought about whether they're still on the state dime when they do that. I'm guessing they
As
would.
reported by the Gazette, they are.
Okay.
I think the last trip cost 200,000 at the least.
It's
Wow.
ARPA funds.
Oh. Huh. Those are usually pretty carefully watched on how those are being spent. So. Okay, I'm gonna do a poll here again. On our education priorities. So again, what's the most important thing in your perspective that we focus our energy on? I know it's hard to pick one. I know that. Because they all work together, right? I thought we'd be pretty uniformly split between public and private school standards being equally applied and then the AEA funding. Okay, I think we're at full participation. I'll share those results real quick while we go on to the next one. And before I do, hopefully everybody saw what Representative Levin said in the chat about I didn't even think about interest on unspent ARPA funds and other emergency funds. That was probably quite a bit of money on the interest of that. I know that some of those funds were reverted because the people could not spend it for the way it was allocated. So I know that was in the area of like providers, um, building building capacity. Hey, another hot button. Every time I hesitate to say this every year, what more could they do to mess with our reproductive rights? And I'm always shocked that there is something else that can be done to do that. So I'm not going to tell you that we're done with all of this stuff. New this year is repealing the 6-week abortion ban. Of course, that was up in the air as courts challenged it. We explicitly stated we would like to have contraception available without a prescription. That was a bipartisan bill that has been introduced. The House is fully behind that. The Senate has been our problem in getting that passed. As well as working on other prevention that makes sense. You will see a lot of prevention bills that are very ideologically centered or not centered, ideologically bent. So last year we had a bill about requiring schools show the baby LWVIA video, which was very slanted to the conservative life begins at conception philosophy, and not at all accurate from a health perspective, not at all accurate. Doctors were opposed to that being, but we had many subcommittee meetings on that. So I think there'll be more of that again, but just focusing on making sure Medicaid services are comprehensive, that we still focus on the prenatal, postnatal, postpartum periods, which was a win last year to get the postpartum 12-month coverage passed. The loss was that we reduced our income levels. So there were women left out, middle income, lower middle income women that are not going to have that full 12-month coverage from Medicaid. We'll still work on, I mean, there's still groups working on that, and of course we'll support that, but really focusing on the full range of reproductive health, and making sure women have access as they need it to what they need, and they don't have to travel for it. I mean, all of that feeds into why we can't attract OBGYNs to the state or other states that have similar policies on record. You did see the majority party sort of scuttle the ballot question for reproductive, well, stating that we would not have a right to abortion in our Constitution. They decided not to do that and put it on the ballot this year. I think you probably can figure out why. And so we are not a state that has that on the ballot. And since they didn't pass it last year, it would have to start the whole two general assembly cycle process again if they wanted to do that. And I don't think they're going to want to do that. I'm going to pause there. See if we have some questions. If you don't want to type it and just want to jump up, go for it. Okay. Yeah, this one we're all pretty we had a great mini briefing on that last year with our partners that we work with, and I know you all have had a lot of time to think about this. I'm going to go ahead and launch our poll, but certainly if you have other questions, let me know or want to make a statement. Checking on the time here. It's 8. Great. All right, we're getting close. Last chance. Get to 80%. I'll shut it down. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm gonna share the results so you can see pretty overwhelmingly repeal the 6-week abortion ban, or sometimes called the heartbeat ban. I did want to mention, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, about a new policy blog we have, but I did want to mention Julie Gamick I listened to it today. She did a great podcast. I don't know if you guys listen to her potluck podcasts, but she's a former Des Moines Register columnist, and she did one with Maisie Stillwell with Planned Parenthood. Mary Ritchie, who is a nurse, but she's formed Iowans for Health Freedom, I think is what it's called. And then Dr. Rebecca Curtis, who's an OBGYN here in West Des Moines, has been pretty outspoken about some of the just medical inaccuracies that are going around abortion. She did, I think it was about an hour podcast about how the legislation is affecting access to reproductive care. So it's a really good one, and I did post a link on that on our blog, and I'll talk about where you can find that a little bit later. Oh
Amy?
yeah. Oh yep. Health Liberty.
You know, I had Martha Wolf here. I had a hard time deciding which to vote on, but I mean, is there any hope whatsoever that they would consider repealing the ban? I guess that's why I didn't vote for it, because it seems like, why waste our energies if there really is no way Republicans are going to consider repealing the ban?
I agree with that too. That was my thought.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not the way not the way it's currently set up. There is no chance the Senate will flip or even get close, just because when you saw those numbers at the begin with, there's just where the seats are now are not seats that Democrats can really take back. Some of them are, but and they're really defending some pretty narrow margin seats too. The House is in play. I think it's a lot to swing that many votes, but if you get within I mean, you can tie things up there. If you get within a reasonable margin, but I don't see it happening, honestly.
Mhm.
I don't, if the legislators that are on want to correct me. I don't know if Herman joined, but I not with where our current makeup. I don't think so.
Mhm. Amy, there's a question in the chat.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to the chat.
Yeah. From Diane Duncan, it's Goldsmith.
Any sense whether or not the 6-week abortion ban is impacting UIs? Well, yeah, I think it is. I think it will. I don't know if it has yet, but I've heard that was a concern raised about how what they can teach there. I haven't talked to their lobbyist since like July. So it would have been right around when it went into effect. So I'll ask Jen Harbison that question. They were pretty certain it was going to, and I know it has in other states. So again, the link to our difficulties in getting people to provide OBGYN care, whether you're a physician, a OBGYN, a nurse practitioner. I think everybody's very nervous about providing maternal care right now. unfortunately. Again, I know it's really important to, yeah, you know what, Carolyn, I think I may have, did I say Life of Mother? Oh, sometimes some of the stuff I copied. So if I use language that needs to be cleaned up, I might have just copied it from something. But I would agree, while not all of this is achievable, like, rolling back voting restrictions isn't probably going to be achievable either. I think it's important enough to the core values of League of Women Voters to have it still on your agenda. But I agree, it makes it difficult to be the full force of what we're trying to accomplish when contraception availability might actually happen when I see I put it in there twice, sorry. And making sure that Medicaid covers reproductive health. And I will add one thing. The Attorney General, when she stopped doing emergency contraception for victim services, people immediately started working with that office, and they did reverse that decision for emergency contraception, not for abortion, but for emergency contraception to be paid for out of um, victim services funds. So that was a win in terms of people working with that office to try to change that trajectory, and that and then that was a big accomplishment given and she listened and increased funding for access to the sexual assault nurse examiners, so doubled their reimbursement. So I take small wins. I know they're not the big win, but human trafficking.
This
Oh,
this is Barbara Helmick. I have a question along these same lines. Um, I'm sorry, I'm really sick. I have a bad cold, and I missed the first few minutes. So I didn't get the introduction of what we're voting on. I mean, I know we're voting on the issues. Are we voting? What frame are we looking at the issues in? And the issue of, can we move the ball down the court? Can we make an impact? Will this help us, get better people into the state legislature? Or is this just something that it's so fundamental to who we are, we have to take a stand? And is there analysis done on, I mean, how many of these things can we take on? Is there some way we can look at it all? I mean, obviously it's been really tough, and I've just been back in Iowa 2 years. So there's so much that needs to be done. How do we use our resources? So I don't know if this is the place to talk about that, but I would like a follow-up on kind of looking through some of those frames on who's on what committees, and research the members on the committee and who has a spouse who is a teacher, and so back in the AEA fight, or what creative ends do we have? How do we build power? That's my big question.
yeah, and we didn't really talk about it other than exactly these priorities have been established by the board, so they are set for 2025. But we know we can't do everything on this list. And so this is kind of just for me and the lobby team to know where we're really thinking our most where we should spend most of our energy, you know, in the session, given that we can't do all of the things on the list. So it doesn't really have any standing. We're not prioritizing it in terms of like in order for legislators. It's just more of a, where are you all thinking are the most important key things that we work on at the Capitol? And yeah, some of them aren't going to be possible, but I don't know, Terese, do you have anything you
Yeah.
wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say too that Barbara, and some of the local leagues, I know Johnson County has has advocacy group that works together on legislative issues, and we also have an advocacy group at the state level that we also discuss many of these issues and talk about what can we do. And so you're right, this is a challenge, and these are some ideas, and not everybody will be able to work on all of them. But in your local league, I would talk to people who are interested in advocating and work with them and perhaps get something going there.
Yeah, I've sort of been on the advocacy committee, and we had our first meeting already.
Good. Yes.
I mean, so it's a little different I'd like to know why people voted the way they did. Was it because again,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, we're not going to get into that, I'm afraid,
Yeah,
tonight.
no.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
but for future,
Yeah.
how do we make best use of the resources we have? So that's
Exactly.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would also add, we can't really even do the deep dive into the committee structures yet, because those are all going to change, and we're going to have new chairs, especially in human services, because we've had 2 chairs retire and a ranking member retire. So it's going to be a quick strategy session after November, the elections in 2 weeks. So I can't wait for that to be done. I'm sure we're all tired of it, of it all right now. Environmental, not much has changed here. Nothing has changed here from our last several years on environmental strategy. Just not much is happening in that area. We can't seem to get any more expansion of water quality initiatives. I know there is going to be something the central Iowa area is promoting this year. They've had a roundtable group working with scientists to try to bring informed scientific basis for some water quality initiatives. And of course, I'm not gonna. I could say what I think how science is going to be accepted at the Capitol, but it's the same challenge we have with adopting state climate change strategies. We should do it, but I'm kind of doubtful that we will, even though it's impacting our agricultural system, and even though it's impacting roofing companies and our homeowners insurance and all of that. I think right now, unless things change significantly with who's getting elected, I don't see any of these things moving forward, unless we get some traction on the I will, which is the constitutional amendment that passed several years ago to increase the state income tax by a penny, is what most people think about, but we're down to like 7/8 of a penny. I think the Senate wanted to keep us in line with Nebraska. But some increase would be dedicated to environmental and outdoor recreation opportunities. So habitat, REAP, which is funded at $12 million, even though the Constitution said it, or not Constitution, the standing appropriation is $20 million. It's been less than that, I think, every year since the beginning of REAP, which would have been in the early 90s. So they pretty much funded it fully one year and then didn't. um, Water quality initiatives, of course, had a big jump about 8 years ago, and then has been status quo since then. Yep, Carolyn suggested cancer should be part of the whole discussion of climate environmental lobbying. I think that that is some of the messaging that the Environmental Council uses. In previous years, we've actually stated support for I will. We didn't in this agenda, but if there's a bill, I would guess we would support it because that would expand water equality initiatives and fund REAP and other things. Oh boy, it's getting loud upstairs. 5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
We don't hear any of it, so you're okay.
Okay, good. There's a lot of hooting and hollering up there. And I'm sure my husband left to go down the street to see his brother-in-law. I was looking at Sherry's comment. Oh, it's on the voucher stuff. So other questions about environment? When I do learn more about what Central Iowa is going to be proposing, I will make sure I get that out to everyone. Yes, Linda did, I think she just messaged it to me, but she did say, here's where an increase in the deposit for the bottle bill could have helped the environment. Yes, of course. And also, I can't get my bottles accepted at my Hy-Vee anymore. I'm so angry right now. I'm searching up redemption centers because I just can't drive from Hy-Vee to Hy-Vee because they don't even accept each other's stuff. If I buy it at the Grimes Hy-Vee and they don't have it at the Johnston Hy-Vee, I still can't return it to a different Hy-Vee. So I can't imagine what rural Iowans are feeling about it right now. And I really want to know what the impact of that decision. There has unredeemed just have to have gone skyrocketed. And of course, if the legislature could take back those unredeemed dollars, which is a lot, and put it into water quality and REAP and other strategies to address environmental protection. But I can't remember how much it was. There, it's not transparent. You don't know, and it's in a lot of Iowans do not realize that unredeemed bottle deposits go directly to the handlers, not the handlers, uh, why am I blanking on the name?
Distributors.
Distributors, that's it. Thank you. Knew it was a D word. I'm gonna go ahead and launch the poll. Got a couple more things. Again, you know, yeah, I think
One thing that is not on, well, when we talk about a state climate change strategy, that brings up the ecological viability of the carbon sequestering system that is still in limbo in the state.
yeah, we've kind of stayed away from some of those issues, but and focused on, but you're right. Yeah.
Where do you think the support for holding tight to no eminent domain for the pipeline is with the legislators?
Oh, that landscape's changing because Wayland Brown, I mean, I gotta say, I really felt for him because he held up that bill, but then they picketed his house and his family, and they were, it got really, some of the tactics got really tough. I mean, I think that led to him leaving the legislature, but I worry about, I don't know, the dynamics of that. That's a Craig question. He does our environmental policy, but I think there's still, it's, I don't know how much of the politics have shifted on that. And I don't know enough about the positions of some of the people that are running right now are going to be, because it is an oddly non, it's kind of nonpartisan in a way. It's kind of where you are. And so I will definitely ask Craig about more information on that. I've steered clear of all pipeline discussions. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share it. How do you access data on the impact of laws Reynolds has signed into law? Such an impact on SNAP application changes. Yeah, I think it's, well, I mean, the one way I always feel like is the quickest way to get information is having a legislator ask that question of the legislative service agency, that and the fiscal, and if it's a fiscal impact like SNAP would be, you would start to see changes in applications, although it's all federal money. But I often have legislators ask that question because they can get a response quicker on impacts. It's tricky to find those. And we don't have really good public policy think tanks anymore that are just doing that analysis outside of the political realm. The Legislative Services Agency does sometimes post issue briefs on various things. Like I'm sure they will on the school voucher program. Sorry for calling it vouchers. It's just what it in my brain is what it is. School choice. I'm sure that they will do that as well. I just realized I never launched the human trafficking priority, but that's okay. I'm going to go to gun safety now. Oops, did not mean for that little pop-up to show up right now, but I'll explain it in a minute. But the it's pretty much the same as what you've seen before, but the additions here are banning assault and military style weapons, which I think was kind of implied in our previous priorities, but we wanted to make that explicit. Reversing stand your ground, we've had that. I would also probably say that we've talked about putting back a red flag law into our law. And then we added opposing policies that put guns in schools, because now we have to, I mean, legislators passed that language last year that allows school employees with certain training to be able to carry concealed weapons in schools. We opposed that as it was happening. The only reason that's not rolling out like you would think it would be is because the insurers that insure schools have said you can't do that or we'll drop your insurance. So it's really become an insurance issue, which I'm sad to say that is what's stopping it, but I'm glad it is, from really going into widespread effect. But again, I think legislators are going to continue to push on this. I will say it's complicated now that we passed that constitutional amendment with strict scrutiny that is going to make a lot of these difficult to enact any gun laws because of that strict scrutiny standard. So I would guess anything that we might be able to accomplish here would probably be challenged in the courts, and I'm not sure that they could stand up. Now, this little pop-up that I showed here with 26 states have adopted this policy, that is actually something I wanted to bring up, and I almost hesitate to say it because I'm afraid if people know that this is in existence in Iowa, they'll get rid of it. But we do still have on the books, as do 25 other states, a child access protection law. I think that's what it's called. It's CAP. Child access prevention law, which actually requires it penalizes gun owners who it tries to keep guns out of the hands of kids. So it basically is saying that you can be charged if your kid gets access to a gun, but it only applies in Iowa to under 14. Other states have gone all the way up to 18. And it's not as strong as other states where it would have more of um, uh, a stronger law, like a secure storage law that would require gun owners to securely store the gun. So in essence, the difference in Iowa is it's only applied if the kid gets access to the gun, then the parent can be charged under that law. In other states where they have the secure storage, it's a requirement that they store it if they have a gun in the home. So it's a little nuanced, but I almost hesitate to bring it up because I'm afraid that somebody will realize we have that and say, we got to get rid of that law. So I just wanted to bring up, I guess, one good part of our law is that we do have a cap law in place that would prevent children from would charge a parent for having their kid have access to the gun if it wasn't properly secured. I know a lot of counties do public health departments, like Polk County does, have free gun locks available, and making that maybe more widespread might be an opportunity for some positive movement in this area. But I don't know. We'll probably still have another bill that allows you to carry loaded shotguns on your SU or your uh, snowmobiles and ATVs. Gotta call them SUVs, ATVs. That one always scratches my head. All right, we're winding down a little bit here. Am I still sharing the other one? Trying to get this one launched. It's not letting me launch it. Maybe I'll stop sharing. Sorry. Promise we're winding down here. Okay. It's our last policy question, then I'll have a general one at the end here. About 10 minutes. Didn't want you guys to just listen. Had to have you do some participation. Okay. I'm gonna end it here. Share the results. And I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna stop my sharing here real quick. And I wanted to, before we end, two things. I'm going to have one final poll that just asks, I know we had a lot of things that we've had on our agendas before, things that are a little bit new. But again, for those that missed out when we first started, I want to make sure that we have, we hit on the issues you want to know more about. So doing those virtual mini sessions again, 2, maybe 3, 1, 2, 3, somewhere in that range of ones, depending on how much people want to know more information on. We'll bring in experts to talk about that specific issue. So you hear from people other than me, people that really know what they're talking about on the very in-depth parts of like education policy and the impacts of that. Or we did the education changes the governor recommended last year, as well as reproductive health. And so that'll help us in determining, and the board in determining how we want to move forward. I did want to mention that we have a new blog feature. So it's always difficult doing a monthly report to you guys during the session, because you like save up all the stuff for the, one publication in a month, and it may not be the most current. You have the bill tracker that we keep for the League of Women Voters of Iowa, which you can get off of the league website, or I'm going to put it in the chat here, or off of our website, which is ialobby.com/bill tracker, and then League of Women Voters of Iowa, LWVIA. And that keeps track of all the bills and where they're at. But we have a new part of the League of Women Voters website now that is a policy blog, and I've posted 2 things so far. Not very many things, but during session, that is where we plan on posting things as they come up, rather than having a monthly newsletter. So you'll get postings more frequent, and I'm going to put the link here for that. It's live now. There's just a welcome message, and then I posted something about that Julie Gamick podcast on reproductive rights that on there. I do plan on putting something up about the revenue estimating conference, showing that our tax cuts are going to lead to $1 billion reduction in revenues, which puts us less than what our current budget is. So I'm going to post something on that. I just hadn't had the chance to really dig into those numbers yet. But I would hope that we will constantly remind you of this, but I would hope you would go to the website and check in and see what new posts we have there, because that's where we'll be posting, like, as the governor does her priorities for the year, we'll post something there. So it'll be more frequent and more timely, but all of the information will stay there. And I really want to thank Terese and the board for working on the website to help accommodate that, so that it's a little bit more timely for you all. I mean, I know we post on social media too, but this will just be an easier place to keep you updated as things are moving forward.
Amy, I have a question for you. So I know this is new, posting things on the blog that's on our website. I mean, do you have any idea how often would be once a week?
I would guess probably early on it'd be once a week, maybe more frequently. So probably less comprehensive, like, here's what's happening on all these different issues, and more like, here's what's happening on reproductive rights this week, and here's what's happened, this bill's coming up, and here's what it does, or this legislative, things like that. With committee action on something, if there's a public hearing on something. So you'll probably not you won't see something that has like 20 different things on it,
Right.
but like one thing that you can focus on. So hopefully that helps with like information overload when you get those.
Yeah.
And
I
we're
really
gonna
like
this year, and if you all don't like it, we'll go from there.
I think it's a great idea. I really think it's something that I think we're all going to perhaps benefit from, and get updates more frequently from you. And so I really think it's great.
I'm going to go ahead and launch this final poll. So before we lose we've lost a few people, but before we lose anyone else, it's really just pick three. If you pick five, it's still going to show up. But if you really wanted, if you wanted to up to three, so if you only had one that you want to know more information about, um, it's kind of all of the newer things that are on our agenda or things that might have changed. Um, I think these are going to help us in deciding kind of how we format those mini sessions if we need a mini briefing. And those were really popular last year. We had over 100 people in those. So also, hopefully, it's a membership recruiting tool for local leagues too, to have those opportunities to learn more from the experts on issues. We do them in the evening like this. I've overpolled you. It's just like the election cycle. We're overpolling. Who answers their phone? That's what I want to know. I never answer my phone. I voted. I voted on the first day and I waited 45 minutes. It was a beautiful day. My husband and I stood out there and it was fine. Easy. My daughter's going down to the library tomorrow to vote. So it's her first presidential election. It's exciting. All right, we're getting there. I'm just going to leave it open. Any other last minute things to talk about? Thank you all for joining us. I know a lot has changed, but we'll see what we need to do after we know the landscape
Mhm.
and what's ahead. Lots
Mhm.
of changes in committee structure, leadership, new lieutenant governor.
Amy, there's a question in the chat. Are you hearing about more contested elections?
Oh, well, I'm hearing that there will probably be more contested elections. I
Mhm.
am not hearing which ones in particular. I mean, I know Josh Turek is in another close election over in Council Bluffs, and he won by 6 votes. Luana Stoltenberg, that's an interesting one. She decided not to run again. She's in the Davenport area, and she won by 6 or 7 votes too. But it was like flip-flopping. Like every recount, it flipped who won until the final third recount. Was it third recount? Second recount? Um, she stepped down, and the Democrats put somebody up, but the Republicans didn't. So that is a definite seat that's going to flip from Republican to Democrat. Um, but I would guess like Heather Matson won by 20 some votes in the House over in Ankeny. She's a friend. She used to be our bill tracker before she ran for the legislature. And she her opponent's named Heather too, and she lives 2 blocks from her. So I, I mean, that's going to be a close race too, I would think. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that there will be contested. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot of security when I went to go vote. Fortunately, they didn't need it, but there in case they did.
Mhm.
I'm going to close the poll here. I'll share results just so people can see it. I know we're at 8:31. Just I can hang on here for a little bit to see if anybody has any other questions, but please don't feel like you have to hang on. Thank you all for participating, but I will stay on here if anybody has any other questions. We will continue to figure out ways that we can get more information to you, but do look at the website. We're trying to drive more things toward the website, and I think that'll be a good option to find your information.
Um, Amy, I think this is perhaps a good question for you. Um, this is Linda Schreiber wants to know, I really want to know about how Iowans can get something on ballots versus having the legislature pass something in 2 consecutive sessions. I know we don't have, easy way to do that, but is there anything that citizens can do?
Well, I mean, other states have passed referendums. I mean, we could do that too.
R-
We could, I mean,
That's,
the legislature can do that. We haven't, I don't know, has the board ever talked about that, Terese? I
no,
don't
we
remember it
haven't.
ever being,
No,
and that can go both ways, right?
yeah.
It can go your way for some issues and not go your way for other issues. I think that may have been the reluctance in the past of that.
Mhm.
But I mean, a lot of states do that. There's a lot of money spent on those. I think
Right.
the most interesting this year is it Missouri or Nebraska? It's Nebraska, I think, that has two opposing abortion
Mhm.
constitutional questions, and they think both are going to pass. And they're
Oh,
opposite each
yes.
other, and
Mhm.
one's like for abortion rights and one's against the
Yeah,
right to abortion.
yeah,
And whichever one gets the highest vote is the one that wins, I guess.
yeah. So Linda, this is your question. Do you have anything specific that you want to ask Amy about this?
Nothing specific, but I just think that Iowans would like to have the opportunity, to collect signatures to get something on the ballot versus waiting for the legislator, lawmakers to decide that, we can vote on something. I see Sherry agrees.
Yeah,
Well,
something we'll
you
have to work on.
potentially, yeah. I think what's interesting is there's probably a whole academic analysis around the wording of these because they've gotten so creative in how they word things sometimes that the citizen doesn't actually know what they're voting on.
Yeah,
Kind of
right.
like this change of only citizens can vote versus
Yeah.
all citizens can vote, changing it
Mhm.
from the positive to the negative.
Yeah.
Um,
I was a poll worker in Lynn County in the midterm elections when the constitutional amendment on strict scrutiny was there. And I can't tell you how many voters asked me what that was all about. And of course, you have to be really careful. But the way that was worded, people who were for it or against it both thought it said what they wanted it to say because people who didn't know the legal definition of strict scrutiny thought, well, that sounds like a good thing.
yeah.
It was hard to keep my tongue bit.
Mhm. Uh, Sherry, you put something in the chat about the new blog. It's on the League of Women Voters face. It's on our web page. If you go to the web page LWVIA, you'll find it there. Amy's blog is there on our
Yeah,
web.
I'll share my screen really quick for those of you
Yeah, do that.
and show you it.
Good.
Here.
Thanks.
It's hopefully, can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so it's right here where it says policy blog. If you click on that, you will see the Julie Gamick thing, that the effects of the 6-week abortion ban. That was her discussion on her podcast. And then this is just my welcome because we wanted to see what it would look like when we put it up. And so you'll see that, I suppose at some point we will take some things off, but I'll try to keep a record of them so we have them. But yeah, that's where it'll be. And I see it says you can leave a reply. I don't know who would get those replies because I wouldn't. I'm not the website person, so that's probably a question I need to ask.
Yes, something you'll need to ask Judy Baldwin. Yeah.
I could leave a reply and we could see.
All right. We'll test that out.
Take one for the team.
I probably will not have a lot of time in session to review replies, so that might be an issue too.
Okay. And listen, if you don't want that on there, I'll ask Judy to remove that. leave a
Let's
reply.
talk about that. We'll talk about it, but
Okay, all right, we'll see how it works, and if you want it removed, we can remove it.
all right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Feel free to let us know if there's something that we would help with or answer questions. And once we
And
get
thank-
past this election, we'll reconnect and
We'll know more. And thanks, Amy.
strategize.
Thank you for your time and effort this evening.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.